So I want to talk about how much should you pay a professional to prepare your Form 990-PF for your private foundation. 990-PF is very different from the Form 990 and the Form 990-EZ. There's a whole different body of law that applies to private foundations, and the form reflects that, as well as the level of complexity and the liability that follows that. A typical price range for a 990 PF could be between 1,500 and 3,500. And that assumes you've got clean books, clean accounting records, and you have the information that the preparer needs in the form that they need it. A more complex Form 990 might cost anywhere between $4,000 to $7,500 or even higher in some cases when they're really large and complicated. Of course, larger firms are going to charge higher fees, and specialists are going to charge higher fees, and they're usually worth it. If you have messy accounting records or problematic accounting records, that can greatly increase the price, double or triple. And if you think you're saving money by not hiring a competent bookkeeper to keep your books during the year, and you just hand your preparer bank statements or some sloppy Excel worksheets or some broker statements, that's going to be much more expensive. So what drives the fees in Form 990-PF? Well, the higher levels of liability on the 990-PF, various penalty taxes and restrictions on what type of transactions can the private foundation can engage in, those result in higher prices partially. And that would include if you have an endowment, large endowment, or complex investments. If you make a lot of grants, okay. If you make foreign grants, that adds a layer of complexity. If you have unrelated business income, if you have income other than contribution, so for instance, sales income, rental income, event income, program income, for instance, if you're a private operating foundation, that adds to the cost. If there's valuation issues with the assets on your balance sheet, that could add, again, poor records, multiple bank accounts, brokerage accounts, errors on a prior year return that need to be fixed, okay, that can add to the cost. Or the presence of self-dealing transactions or taxable expenditures. Those definitely add to the cost. What other factors? Same thing basically for the 990. If you take too long to respond to questions asked by the preparer, it causes a preparer to have to put it down and do something else while he's waiting for you, and then they have to come back and pick up where they left off and figure out, where was I? And if that happens multiple times, that adds a lot of time to the preparation. If you withhold information until the last minute, that adds to the cost. And if you have unusual or complex transactions that require research, that definitely adds to the cost. And you want to make sure that your preparer has the resources to do research on these issues and that they're willing to put the time into it. What about discounted fees? Pro bono, that means they do it for free, or very low fees. Something below $1,200 would be very low. Of course, there are instances when that's okay, but just in general, if the fees are too low, you might want to ask why, because they're generally not making a profit on the work at prices at that level. Okay, given the risks of high penalties for improper transactions, I do not recommend that a private foundation hire pro bono or low fee preparers. Okay, you want somebody that's engaged, that's being compensated for their time, and that's willing to do what's necessary to spend time looking at the transactions and filling out the form properly. It is a very complicated form. If you're preparing Form 990-PF yourself, you want to make sure you receive some type of instruction on it, other than just reading the instructions to the form, although that's a great place to start, okay? Otherwise, you're risking expensive problems. With the 990 and 990EZ, there's some fudge factor there. There's room for mistakes. With the 990 PF, there really is not. Right. So I hope that's helpful.